Hi, I'm Sandra. You know the saying, when you marry someone, you marry their whole family? Let me tell you about the nightmare that came with my otherwise perfect marriage. James and I had dated for 2 blissful years before tying the knot in a gorgeous spring ceremony. It was straight out of a fairy tale until my mother-in-law, Diana, decided I wasn't the princess her story needed. "Oh, sweetie, that's somehow we fold napkins in this family," Diana said during my first family dinner as a newlywed, her perfectly manicured hands snatching the fabric from mine. "James has always loved them folded into swans, haven't you, darling?" James gave a weak smile. Mom's really particular about these things. That should have been my first red flag. But I was so desperate to be the perfect daughter-in-law that I spent 3 hours that night watching YouTube tutorials on napkin folding. Ridiculous, right? The little comments kept piling up. "James looks a bit thin. Are you cooking enough protein? We always spend summers at the lake house." "Sandra, I'm sure you can take time off work, can't you, dear?" Each one was delivered with a saccharine smile that never quite reached her eyes. I tried everything to win Diana's approval. I brought her favorite wines, remembered every birthday and anniversary, asked for her recipes, and embraced her family traditions. But no matter how hard I tried, I always seemed to fall short of her impossible standards. Then came Thanksgiving, the breaking point. "What do you mean we're going to your mom's for Thanksgiving?" I asked James, confused. "I thought we were having dinner at your parents' place. Diana's been talking about it for weeks." "Mom says she told you," he replied casually. "She had to cut the guest list because Aunt Martha's bringing her boyfriend's whole family. She figured you'd understand since you're not really into traditional family stuff anyway." My heart sank. "James, she never told me. This is the first I'm hearing about it." "Come on, Sandra. Mom wouldn't lie about that. You probably just forgot. You've been so busy with work lately." That's when it hit me. Diana hadn't forgotten to invite me. She deliberately excluded me and twisted the story to make me look like the problem. "Your mother is lying, James. She's been doing this since day one." His voice turned cold. "Don't start this again. Mom's been nothing but welcoming to you. You're the one always looking for problems where there aren't any." I went to bed alone that night, listening to James call his mother to apologize for my attitude. As I lay there, something shifted inside me. Diana wanted to play games. Fine. But she was about to learn that this daughter-in-law wasn't going to roll over and take it anymore. After Thanksgiving, the tension escalated into psychological warfare. Diana brought in reinforcements, her best friend, Karen, who suddenly appeared at every family gathering. I catch them whispering, their conversation halting the second I entered the room. "I just don't know what to do anymore." I overheard Diana lamenting to Karen at a barbecue. "She's so controlling. Poor James can barely spend time with his family without her making a scene. Have you noticed how she always has to be the center of attention?" Karen chimed in just loud enough for others to hear. "And that dress she wore to church last month? Completely inappropriate." For the record, I hadn't even been to church last month. I was stuck at home with the flu, but none of that mattered in Diana's carefully crafted narrative. The rumors spread like wildfire. Family members who used to greet me warmly now gave me strange, suspicious looks. Weekend brunches turned into minefields of passive-aggressive comments and subtle exclusions. Then, something unexpected happened. Sarah, James's sister, cornered me in the kitchen during a family dinner. "I see what she's doing to you," she said, her voice low but resolute. "Mom pulled the same stuff with my college boyfriends, the ones she didn't approve of." "You believe me?" I asked, almost afraid to hope. "Hard not to when you're watching history repeat itself," she said with a grim smile. "Michael and I only survived because he stood up to her early on." For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Finally, someone else saw the truth. But Diana wasn't done. A week before Christmas, she dropped her biggest bomb yet. "I'm hosting a special family-only Christmas dinner this year," she announced at Sunday dinner. "Just parents and children. A return to tradition." "Mom, Sandra is family," James said, surprising everyone, including me. "Oh, honey, of course she is," Diana replied, her tone syrupy. "But I meant blood family. You understand, don't you, Sandra?" Before I could respond, Sarah cut in. "Actually, Mom, Michael and I won't be able to make it either then, since he's not blood family." The room went dead silent. Diana's perfect mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the anger underneath. "Sarah, that's different. Michael and I have a special relationship." "Really? Because I remember you trying to exclude him our first 2 Christmases together. James's gaze flickered between his sister and mother, confusion etched on his face. You did the same thing with Aunt Linda's husband, he said slowly, before Uncle Rick put his foot down. That was completely different. Diana's voice rose slightly. I don't understand why everyone's attacking me when all I'm doing is trying to preserve our family traditions. But the damage was done. For the first time, James didn't immediately jump to his mother's defense when I later brought up my concerns. I always thought Sarah was exaggerating about how Mom treated Michael at first, he said quietly. Maybe I've been missing some things. It wasn't a full awakening, but it was a crack in Diana's perfect facade, and I intended to make that crack grow. Looking back, that was the night everything truly began to change. Diana had overplayed her hand, though she didn't realize it yet. Sarah and I became cover operators in our own family drama. She forwarded me screenshots of family group chats I'd mysteriously been left out of, while I kept a meticulous log of every interaction, every forgotten invitation, every backhanded comment. One afternoon, Michael showed us his phone. He'd accidentally been included in a group text meant for Karen. Diana's literally orchestrating who sits where at family dinners to isolate you, he said, scrolling through the messages. She's got diagrams and everything. I can't believe she's put this much effort into making my life miserable, I muttered. Oh, it gets better, Sarah said with a smirk. Remember Linda's husband, Tom? He reached out after Christmas. Apparently, Diana pulled the same stunts with him until Rick threatened to cut her off from the grandkids. The evidence kept piling up. Robert, Diana's usually silent husband, overheard her plotting with Karen in their home office. We need to push harder, Diana said. James is still too attached. If we can just get him to see how she's changing him. Maybe another family emergency when she's planned something important, Karen suggested. Robert, finally fed up, recorded the entire conversation. The dam broke as people began comparing notes. Years of Diana's manipulation came to light. Cousin Donna's husband had been excluded from family photos. Uncle Steve's wife had never been invited to girls' shopping trips. The pattern went back decades. But Diana wasn't going down without a fight. Sarah's baby shower became ground zero. I was hanging decorations when Diana burst in with Karen at her heels. I know what you're doing, she hissed at me, turning my own family against me, poisoning my son's mind. Mom, stop it, Sarah tried to intervene. And you? Diana rounded on her daughter, siding with her over your own mother. After everything I've done for this family, everything you've done. Robert's voice came from the doorway. He'd arrived early with Michael. You mean like deliberately excluding our children's spouses, manipulating our son, making our daughter-in-law feel unwelcome in her own family? You don't understand. Diana's voice grew shrill. I'm protecting our family. She's trying to take my son away. No, Mom. James stepped out from behind his father. He'd heard everything. You're the one pushing me away. And I've got proof. The color drained from Diana's face as James held up his phone, showing the group chat screenshots Michael had uncovered. I wanted to believe you, James said quietly, his voice trembling. But Sarah was right, James said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. You did this to her and Michael. You've done it to everyone who married into our family. And worst of all, I let you do it to my wife. Diana's eyes darted around the room, seeking an ally, but all she saw were unsympathetic faces. Even Karen, her most loyal accomplice, took a step back, unwilling to be caught in the fallout. This isn't over, Diana snapped, grabbing her purse. This is my family, mine. She stormed out, leaving the baby shower in chaos. As the door slammed behind her, I caught Robert's eye. He gave me a subtle nod of reassurance. The final confrontation was coming, and this time we were ready. The annual family reunion became the stage for our ultimate act. Diana, oblivious to what was about to unfold, arrived with her usual air of control, her carefully crafted facade intact. She had no idea her world was about to collapse. Robert had insisted on hosting at their house this year, despite Diana's protests. When everyone was seated for lunch, he stood up, commanding the room's attention. Before we start, he began, his voice firm, we need to address something as a family. Diana's eyes darted nervously between Robert and Karen, who was suddenly very interested in her phone. For years, I've watched you manipulate and hurt people in this family, Robert continued, his tone steady but heavy with emotion. I stayed quiet, hoping you'd change, but after what happened at Sarah's baby shower. Robert, this isn't the time, Diana interjected, her voice tight with panic. Actually, Mom, James said, stepping forward, it's exactly the time. He pulled out a tablet and began scrolling. Let's start with the group text where you plan to exclude my wife from family events. Then we'll move on to the recordings of you and Karen plotting to break up my marriage. Karen shot to her feet. I never meet. Sit down, Sarah cut in, her voice icy. We have your messages too. All of them. The evidence unfolded like a tidal wave. Screenshots, recordings, testimonies from family members spanning decades. Diana's face grew paler with each revelation. You've been coordinating with Karen to spread lies about every person who married into this family, Michael said, holding up a series of message threads. But you got sloppy. You accidentally included me in some of your group texts. Diana's calm cracked, and she exploded. I did it for the family, she yelled. These outsiders come in, trying to change our traditions, taking my children away. No, Mom, James interrupted sharply. You did it for control, and you're not going to have that anymore. Diana's face crumpled as she looked around the room, finding no support. She ran from the room in tears, but there was no sympathy in the faces she left behind. Too many people had been hurt for too long. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about building something better from the ashes of what was destroyed. And that's exactly what we did. Diana's grip on the family was broken, and in its place, we created a new kind of bond. One built on honesty, mutual respect, and love. What would you do if your mother-in-law had spent years secretly sabotaging your marriage while pretending to be the perfect family matriarch? Would you expose her to the entire family like Sandra did, or would you handle it differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a situation where an in-law tried to manipulate family members against you? How did you handle it? If you enjoyed Sandra's journey from silently suffering to finally standing up for herself, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe.